diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. Check, we Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. It's apparent these girls staring. I'm Ric Flairing, gold across my chest. I'm fresh to death, I'm Paul Bearing, not at all scary. When I open like Betty Wops and find to these circles that's going in like a carry shot. Woo! I'm going in like a Mary Pop off that Mary Crop at the top flow at the Marriott. So questioning me is like questioning you. See, we the best dressed, so come and get blessed with the crew. Not one but two, different ways to slaughter your crew. Committed tat across the chest, I guess she blessed with the truth. People want to see them checks, representation of proof. Living through my elders, trying to resonate to the youth. But ain't nothing to get my flash on. Longevity is heavily embedded in my melanin. Layman terms, I last long. My grind repetitive, I'm smoother than real silk. Lyrical cash cow who can't cry over spilled milk. We in here. You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. To the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. This ain't no normal situation, this preparation with greatness. Industry full of fakeness is really up for the taking. See, life is what happened to you, more so how you take it. Don't get stripped of your knowledge and mentally leave you naked. I like to live otherwise. I'm sorry that I'm fresh to death. I put the polo and apologize. See, black son, we ain't nothing like the mother guys. Quit to socialize, we organize, then we mobilize. Off the deep end like a scuba diver. And no confusion, just keep it pushing like Uber drivers. Woo! Business fresh just like a supervisor in a Gucci visor. Can't find a smoother rhymer. You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. You talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it. We Ric Flairing on it, flaring on it.
Yeah, DQ baby. Shout out that boy Nigga for that fire track. Hey, Black Sun, sun up. What's up, Vinny Vegas? What in Vegas? Yeah. Shout out Pharaoh's Kids, D-Phase, yeah, Bubba C, yeah, Ric Flairing on them, Ric Flairing on them, Ric Flairing on them, Ric Flairing, son up, baby.
Hey, Roundtable Season 2. Scotty and Blue. Backpack coming through. Let's square it away. Ain't nothing like the round table. I pay you if able to find better on cable. They made you appreciate Scotty and Blue. Football media, walking encyclopedia. Scott understand the Blue got the stats handy. Football, the topic around it, they ain't dancing. Stat sheet longer than Clifford Harris's rap sheet. He run a phone, please. See why you're playing them that deep. Awkward silence, no need to be quiet. You know you saw the game, we might as well talk about it. Somebody caught a body in front of everybody. Pick six, cornerback out here committing robberies. How much you wanna bet we could cover the spread? 50 yards in the game, 100 after the catch. Throw it up if you want, I'ma grab it and flex. Season 2, Captain Pettier, still with the mess. You can move how you want, but we gon' move too. Round table with your boys, yeah, Scotty and Blue. Backpack.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Scotty. It's my man, Blue. And you watching the round table. You are watching the round table.
It's a big one. This is a big one.
Listen, you know I had to bust out. Listen, that's the new intro. Season 2 roundtable. We in here. You know what I'm saying? We keep the hits coming. All right. Shout out to my boy Backpack. Hey, listen. With big news, with big stuff, you know you got to have the heavy hitters. It's not just my man Blue. It's my man BJ Jones. Oh, man. What's good? You muted.
Sleep. That's what's been up, man. Been getting a little sleep here lately, man. Difficult to do with a newborn, man.
Yeah, new dad in the building. Shout out to you, man. New dad in the building. Hey, listen, we ain't gonna be on here long, but we probably gonna be 7:40, 7:30, 7:45. All right, because you got a spaces that BJ's putting on at 8:30, 7:30 Central. All right, go find them on Twitter at Inside HBCU Football and stuff like that. Now, listen, guys, you already know where we're starting at. The breaking news of the century: UCLA SC moves to the Big Ten. You know, listen, this is you and BJ all day, Blue. What listen, what happened? Why?
Man, the money grab that is college football nowadays, and the TV contracts are huge, and also the Pac-12. If you've been following FBS football, the biggest complaint of all the Pac-12 universities that are really good at football are the Pac-12 didn't give enough attention, time, resources to college football. When you look at the Pac-12, they really focus more on their Olympic sports, their gymnastics, and even going into like softball and things like that. They put a lot more resources, time, money, energy into that. And they just had a commissioner change last year coming into this past season. And a big thing was, is he going to be able to rework the TV deals? Is he going to be able to help the Pac-12 keep up with the Big Ten, the SEC? And the answer thus far has been no. And so when you look at the Big Ten TV deal coming up, their contract expires in 2023. They're negotiating for no less than $1 billion. That's the bottom line that they're going to get for that TV deal. And when you're looking at from the Big Ten perspective, the LA market is going to be the biggest leg up on for anything negotiating TV deals. So now you got the Midwest with the Ohio's, the Michigan, all those TV markets. You have the DMV area with Maryland stretching over to Rutgers over there in New Jersey and everything. And now you got the LA market. And also for the I guess the underlying point is USC UCLA are rivals with Notre Dame. They play every single year, and the Big Ten has been looking for a leg up to convince Notre Dame to join their conference rather than join the ACC, where they're already playing all their other sports. So this was a move on multiple levels, and the Big Ten, in my opinion, is just playing chess. And I think a lot of people are overlooking the little intricacies of why this makes so much sense for these universities and conference.
Hey, BJ, I know you talked a little bit about travel as well on some of your tweets and stuff like that. What are some of the things you thought when you first heard the news go down that USC and UCLA was going to the Big Ten?
First of all, I was like, man, it's got to be a joke. I mean, I know April and we passed April Fools, but realistically, you knew something like this was coming because the Pac-12 schools were increasingly not happy with the previous commissioner. Look, the Pac-12 did this to themselves. Instead of headquartering their conference, the conference building itself, having it in a smaller city, it's in San Francisco where the rent is unbelievable. And the schools were actually coming off in the red just for rent for the Pac-12 offices. All right, that's incompetence 101. All right, then let's start to look at the Pac-12 network. Yes, they have a network. No, if you're watching this, you probably don't know where to find it. You probably have never seen it. Okay? And that's because it's not available in that many homes. I've never seen a Pac-12 network broadcast until last year. We went out to Vegas, and they have it out there. It's out west, but it doesn't stretch further than Colorado. So you're losing subscribers there. Fewer subscribers, the less money that TV deal is actually worth. And then we start looking at what schools are cutting, what conferences are cutting schools as far as TV deals. You look at what the SEC schools what they were getting. It was about $46 million a school. The Big Ten was up there as well. But the Pac-12 was all the way down. I think it was like $15-16 million a school. That's a big drop off. Yeah. And there has been nothing to indicate that this is going to be corrected or that the conference is going to be proactive about fixing this. So we want to go somewhere We go to the Big Ten, and this is checkmate for the Big Ten. Big Ten has Chicago. Big Ten has New York. Big Ten has Columbus. Big Ten has Cincinnati. Big Ten now has Los Angeles. Yeah, we go checkmate. The Big Ten now has, I think, 7 out of the 10 largest television markets in the United States. So now we go to the drawing board. Yeah, we're gonna start that thing off at $1 billion, and then we're gonna work our way up.
So do you think, because I read an article that said that there's no penalties that are going to get associated with USC and UCLA because their TV contract expired on 2023 and then they joined 2024, so there's no pending. Is this a conversation that you think USC and UCLA had always had in their back of their pockets, like, yo, we're rivals, we're the big dogs here, let's do this together?
Yeah,
they said it.
Yeah, I mean, Blue, you remember this? Remember 2012 when we almost got that Pac-16, when there was a relationship that was built between Southern Cal, UCLA, and a few of those Pac-12 schools in the Big 12. Those relationships didn't go anywhere. A lot of people thought that Southern Cal and UCLA will eventually go to the Big 12, but Bob Bowlesby and kind of thing was going on. But for the Big 10 to come in, and think about this: almost a year ago to the date, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Big 10 made this alliance. Like, hey, we're going to scratch each other's back. We're going to be there for each other. We're just not going to let the SEC run roughshod. Kevin Warren in 1 year has picked up the gun to the alliance and basically shot it in the head and stole 2 teams and moved on.
Hey, how do you, at the end of the day, Blue, what is the Big Ten's overall mission in building this thing out? Because you've literally, damn near everybody's on the opposite of the Mississippi River. So now you got a team coming 3 hours behind to the Big Ten to have games. There has to be some type of disadvantage to this.
I mean, there's some disadvantages in terms of games because right now, I mean, up until they don't come till 2024, so we'll have the new TV deal. They're going to have to restructure what time the primetime game kicks off. It kicks off at like 11 o'clock in the morning, Central Time. No way you can have a 9 a.m. Pacific Time primetime game. And on top of that, so what you're looking at is they're probably going to go the SEC route and have their games at like 3:30 in the afternoon, 4:30 in the afternoon. That way, on both ends of the spectrum, you can have that game where a lot of people are going to see it. But the overall goal, man, beat the SEC. It's an arms race between the Big Ten and the SEC. And a lot of the conferences, I even said it on our show when we were talking about the alliance and when Texas and Oklahoma announced their move, a lot of the other Power 5 commissioners looked at that as like a declaration of almost war. Like the SEC was like, man, we don't care about none of y'all. We're going to grab Texas and Oklahoma and we're going to monopolize college football. Well, in return, the Big Ten said, checkmate. I'll go get USC, UCLA. We got Oregon, Washington on the side, waiting on Notre Dame's decision. And we're in talks with North Carolina, Clemson, all these ACC programs to bring them in with us. And it's going to be the SEC versus the Big Ten pretty much. And that's the long-term goal. Is a lot of the conferences, a lot of the commissioners looked at what the SEC was doing and said, if we don't stop it, there isn't going to be college football. It's going to be the SEC versus everyone else. And with the money, resources, the popularity behind the SEC, they knew that wasn't a battle that they could win unless they made a move now.
Okay, so you went to my next question. Can the NCAA control any of this at any point in time?
Nothing. There's nothing they can do. The way the commissioner's contract is structured, there's nothing he can do. Like, he has no control over who's in what conference. It's pretty much like the government having states' rights. There's nothing you can't do anything about it. And that was the problem. And when me and Brandon had our show over a year ago, I said, if the NCAA doesn't move quickly and bring in the conferences and get some sort of commissioner or a panel of commissioners, where like the playoff committee, where you got the top 3 biggest commissioners in the country and make them the commissioner of the NCAA and bring them in and allow them to start moving forward their agendas together, this was going to happen. And I think I can speak for myself, BJ, people in the chat, yourself, even though you're not a big FBS guy. Everyone's sick and tired of the NCAA, man. It's been years and years of them being 2, 3, 4 steps behind on everything. You go back to NIL, you go back to recruiting practices, scholarship limits. The list goes on and on and on about how the NCAA has just drugged their feet on big issues that needed to be approached. And so I personally think that the NCAA is a sitting duck right now, and the ultimate goal, and really and truly, it's been announced that the ultimate goal is to separate from the NCAA, and this is the first step of that. And you're going to see some of these big conferences move away from the NCAA and form their own, whatever you want to call it.
BJ, what is, if you're the NCAA right now and you wake up in the morning and you see UCLA and USC have moved to the Big Ten, what are the parameters you're looking forward to doing? Because this is just getting ridiculous. It's just like, hey, you got something I want, we're gonna join with you. It feels like the Warriors and Kevin Durant, like in NCAA college football, like the richer are getting richer. And where does that leave everybody else?
If you're the NCAA, you have to hope that someone wants to focus on basketball, because one thing that they have going for them is they throw a hell of a basketball tournament, and and honestly, from the NCAA, that's where the money comes from. It comes from that basketball tournament in March, the vast majority of it. So you have to hope that there's some schools that are going to say, hey, we might not be able to do this thing from a football standpoint, but from a basketball standpoint, we may be able to group together, and that can kind of help make March Madness a little bit better. Because this is the thing about it. When you see these moves being made, what sport do you see being shown? These are football moves. All the other sports be damned. All right. It doesn't matter. All right. So what you're telling these other student athletes is that, hey, Teresa that plays softball, you're going to get on the plane and track 3,000 miles to the East Coast to play a 3-game series in Piscataway, New Jersey against Rutgers. And you're a student athlete too, so I hope your studies are up to par too there, Teresa. This is a football move. It's a football move. Everything else be damned.
Damn, Teresa. Why now? I want to talk about something that I know a lot of people haven't heard about, and it's kind of a little bit of rumblings. Let me bring up this screen. Is even the Ivy Leagues are talking about making a super conference. With the Vanderbilts, the Stanfords, moving through the FCS. Blue, I know you love your Ivies. You love some Ivies. I mean, is this them kind of insulating themselves from all the moves and transformations that are going on?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, when you look at the Stanfords, the Vandys, whoever you want to put in there, football really does come second. I mean, I can't see it happening with a school like Duke, though, because of basketball. No way that they would risk, not being able to be in a big conference or everything like that. And some of these smaller schools like Vandy and Duke are going to be drug along in this. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people in the chat are like, well, Vandy's running away with the TV money and all this kind of stuff, man. People forget how good Vandy is at some other sports. And same for Stanford and Duke's basketballs in the Final Four every year. Listen, I mean, from a football perspective, those schools aren't bringing a lot to the table, but in other sports they are. And so when you're looking at all these renegotiations and relocations, you do have to look outside of just from a football perspective. But I really don't see the Ivy League Super Conference becoming a thing, because you have the Ivy Leagues, and Stanford, Vandy, Duke, all those high-level academic schools are going to find a place due to their success in other sports. So I don't see the Ivy League Super Conference becoming a thing outside of, maybe there's some sort of like scheduling alliance or something like that. But I can't see that coming to fruition right now, at least.
What about you, B?
No, I can't see it. Vanderbilt's already making too much money in the SEC, and Stanford has 3 national championships under their belt just this year, national titles they've won. So I don't see it happen. Now, I think what you might see, the Ivies try to pair up with the Patriot League, because those two conferences, they do have a working relationship from an academic profile. The schools are pretty much in the same boat. We're talking about tier 1 institutions. Mm-hmm. So I think that you'll see that. I don't see Northwestern bolting from the Big Ten to join that. Northwestern has, why would I give up all that money, guaranteed money, for something that's a possibility? So the Ivies in the Patriot League, I can definitely see it.
Okay, that's what's up. Now I want to get back to this contract, which is everybody has been discussing. Big Ten reporting closing in on a media's right deal worth 1 point. Let me ask you this: is the SEC sitting back like we keep beating up on everybody? But how is the Big Ten constantly, every time they negotiate something, the Big Ten negotiates something maybe 1.2 times bigger than what they have? How does the SEC get back to being on top in the media rights? And then what is this? I mean, like the Big Ten network, do you really even need ESPN at this point? I mean, like, for real.
This is actually coincidence. So what happened is the SEC actually made the first mistake. What happened is they signed the CBS deal for too long. And what the Big Ten did is come behind them and structure their contract length to end right after the SEC would sign their new deal, so they could leverage that new deal to get a bigger deal. So what happened is the SEC screwed themselves and said, CBS, man, we'll give you the rights for like 15 years. And the Big Ten said, I bet, give us our rights for 16. That way, as soon as the SEC renegotiates, we can get our money and just build upon it. And so it's just like NBA contracts. It's all about timing. And so if KD, if not even KD, because he's a good player, these bum players getting like $60 million deals, the bum player next year is going to ask for 75. And so what the Big Ten did is just position themselves in the perfect negotiating space. And now the Big Ten is got a leg up on the SEC, because I promise you, they signed the $1.1 billion deal. If the SEC would have been smart and renegotiated in 2024, the SEC would be pushing $2 billion easily.
And I think another big thing is the markets that you get. We talked about this earlier. In the SEC, we know what they do on the field, but you look at the population, some of those big markets. In the SEC, you have Atlanta, you have Jacksonville, you have Orlando, Tampa. You have some of those. Now you're going to get Austin, Texas. You can add Dallas, Texas into that. But there's not a Chicago in there. There ain't no Los Angeles in there. When we're talking about metropolises that has 17, 15, LA 31 million people.
Yeah.
Hey, when you bring in that many homes and that many television sets, it kind of tilts the balance a little more.
That's what's up. So let me ask you this. Where does this leave the ACE? That's what I'm saying. Where does this leave the ACC? Where does this leave the Big 12? Where do these other conferences get in where they're fit in? Because the ACC, I'm not saying they scrubs, but I mean you got some good, you got some nice programs. You got the U, you got Florida State, you got Clemson. You know what I'm saying? Like where does the other places get left at? These other conferences get left
fighting for their lives. The Pac-12 and Big 12, are going to be absolutely fighting for their lives. I mean, they're drowning, and there's the Coast Guard ain't coming. There ain't a lifeguard. They're just going to drown there. And I mean, and the reason is because the Pac-12 could have made it if no one else left. But Oregon's on the waiting list for the Big 10. Washington's on the waiting list for the Big 10. Utah's looking for a way out. Arizona State are going to try to find a way out. Washington State and Oregon State are going to follow their respective rivals somewhere. And then for the Big 12, your only hope of surviving was to combine with another conference. And there's just not going to be anyone to combine with. And in Cincinnati, BYU, and all those schools aren't going to put you on a playing field with a conference with Michigan, Ohio State, USC, UCLA, Michigan State. The list goes on. And for the ACC, the problem is the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be like divorced parents fighting over kids. They are going to throw as much money at those schools as humanly possible, man. I'm telling you, listen, they're already in a battle for UNC right now because they want the basketball team. The SEC and Big Ten are going to throw millions of dollars and all kind of incentives to these schools. Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are about as good as gone to the SEC. It's a countdown of how long it's going to be, and I would imagine that announcement is coming within the next few years.
So, BJ, so you're looking at, from what he's describing, you're looking literally at a two super conference league, like the Big Ten versus the SEC. How does this even work in regards to bowl games? And I'm not understanding it.
Yeah. So, all those other conferences they're done. They're just trying to figure out, how to get the ship to sink, the easiest way possible, because it's done. This is the thing about it. And Kirk Herbstreit talked about this. I think what you'll see is kind of like an NFL style roundup, where you will have, this is the Big Ten, East, the Central, and then the West, and have everyone kind of factored out that way. And people will say, well, what about college football national title? Go look at the college football national championships over the past 100 years and look how many of those reside either in the Big Ten or the SEC. Like, it's like 95% of them. All right. It wasn't like a whole bunch of other people were winning championships. All right. So I think that those two conferences come together and they can go to the NCAA and say, hey, man, we got enough to do our own thing. And there's not enough out there outside of us where people are going to lose anything or going to be like, okay, so what about this team? I think the powerful are going to get more powerful. You're talking about $100 million just in TV revenue to each school. We ain't talk about ticket sales. We ain't talk about apparel. We ain't talk about none of that. Just TV money, $100 million per school. You can't compete with that.
Just to let everybody know, we will be taking some calls. So let me get my call on going real quick. All right.
You are the only participant.
Man, I want to talk to Mr. Campbell, man. Mr. Campbell, my dude, man.
Muted.
And he's in here too. Now, this is BJ. I want you to pop this off for me. How does this affect FCS schools? Because now, if you're a smaller market, okay, so if you're a smaller conference in the D1, you're looking to add teams because, you're getting your team siphoned off. How does this affect the FCS schools that are big named or feel like they can make the jump?
Well, I mean, of course, with the Pac-12, the first thing you think about is the Big Sky, because that's the conference in their footprint with Montana State, and some of those other schools. And those schools in the past have been reluctant to make the jump. Reason being, Montana State, those what we call plain state schools, they don't compete with FBS. Like, they're isolated. They don't have to compete for the eyeballs or anything of that nature. And you have to gauge, are those schools willing to leave what they have to come to you? Because you don't necessarily guarantee anything right now. The only thing that you can say is, hey, we're FBS. But the way that this thing is going, it seems like there's going to be this Big Two league and then everyone else. And we don't know how that money is going to be divvied up, once you get to the everyone else's. So I don't know if you can go to the Big Sky or go to some of those schools in the Missouri Valley. People throw up North Dakota State. And I will say this, North Dakota State's athletic budget ain't as big as you think it is. All right. For as much ass as they kick, North Dakota State's athletic budget until very recently was less than Alabama State's in Prairie Views. And when I say very recently, like 2 years ago.
Wow.
They just got up to $24 million that they spend on athletics. So they don't have like this large athletic budget. And I think when you talk about those plain state schools, those are small states that don't even have a million. They may have 1 million people. So, I mean, going FBS, it brings about a different challenge as opposed to if you were in a Georgia or Alabama or Louisiana.
Blue, let me ask you this. If you're the NCAA, knowing that these teams are getting siphoned, do you lessen the requirements for FCS teams to now become FBS? Because they just made it more stringent for FCS teams to move up. Do you bring those requirements back down to now allow teams to be able to come up and help these other smaller conferences that are getting siphoned off by the big teams?
Probably not, because all that's going to do is allow more failure stories, like when you watch an Idaho or someone come up, or a FAMU even back in the day that came up and absolutely drowned at that next level. So I don't think you can lower the requirements, because then you're just going to have a bunch of teams that move up and fail. Or they're operating at a major deficit, or they can't compete on that type of level. So, and also on the flip side, I think BJ was kind of hinting to this. If I'm sitting back and I'm Montana State, Montana, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, I'm even a SWAC school, I'm not moving up. Why would I move up when there's no guarantee for future bowl games? There's no guarantee I'm going to be able to stick in the conference. There's no guarantee that you're even going to be a conference. So why would I risk what I have now to make that jump, potentially just to be left without a safety net? So for me, if I'm some of these FCS schools, I'm waiting back and I want to see what the restructuring looks like. I want to make sure the Sun Belt knows what they're doing. I want to make sure the CUSA, Mountain West, whoever. Why would you move to potentially be right back where you were? So for me, you really gotta do your research and really analyze the landscape of college football, because things are about to start moving fast. We're going to have a complete restructuring of the top levels of the NCAA and college football in general. You're going to have a complete restructuring of conferences, complete restructuring of some programs. So for me, there's no reason to move up. Any team, from the SWAC to the Missouri Valley to the NEC to the Patriot, regardless of what your finances are, moving up is a way bigger risk than it is any type of reward right now, because in 2 years, your conference could fall right out from underneath you. And then you're sitting there, you've lost money for possibly 2 years. You got all these kids on scholarship that now you got to cut 20-something scholarships from your program, which leaves a bunch of kids out to dry. There's just a lot of things right now. If I'm an FCS program, you could not offer me enough money to come up right now to a group of 5 conference. And then on the flip side, there's no FCS program ready to jump straight to to Power 5 or Power 2 or whatever it is. So for me, if I'm FCS programs, I am staying completely flat-footed until more stuff is figured out.
BJ, does the NCAA, okay, two-part question for you, BJ. How does SWAC and MEAC insulate themselves to now build their own brands bigger in the FCS? And does the NCAA turn its eyes and focus to help the FCS schools, you know, in their markets and their brands?
I think for the SWAC and MEAC, now you got it. The SWAC has been innovative as far as, you know, getting schools to come in. I think for the MEAC, man, you got to make some moves. You got to do something over there. I feel like oftentimes the MEAC is like that meme of the little thing with the stick poking something. It's like, do something. And that's how I feel about like the MEAC, you know, from time to time. I mean, I know they have a conference office, and they swear they're doing something. They do something there. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think that for the MEAC, man, you got to make some kind of move. I mean, because what you've seen is that no one's safe. Today marks the first day that Hampton is officially part of the CAA, the Colonial Athletic Association. And you saw a couple other teams from Conference USA go to the Sun Belt. Teams are fluid, and they're going to be looking for what's going to be best for them overall. But I will say this. I think the NCAA is going to focus on FCS and lower. The reason being is because of this. The NCAA controls the playoff. The NCAA awards the national title. At the highest level, the NCAA didn't award that national title. That's handed out by the College Football Playoff Committee. They're not tied to the NCAA. So I think the NCAA, because they get money off those playoffs, going to start trying to focus on those schools for a multitude of reasons. Number one, as a school, you need me. You ain't got Alabama and all them kind of money, all right? And then I need you because I've lost them.
Yeah.
You're all I have. So now we have a marriage, even if it's forced. For right now, we have a marriage.
Oh wow, I like those points.
But building off of that too, the one good part for the FCS might be the NCAA starts dropping some money into the playoffs, and that becomes profitable now. Which because when you look at the popularity of the SWAC and MEAC, there could be a chance that the NCAA throws a bag at the playoffs and says, "Listen, we want everyone from Ivy League to the SWAC to the MEAC in this playoff." And then if you're talking about the winner gets some money, making the playoffs becomes profitable, then the entire FCS is going to be flipped on its head, man. That would be huge for programs like Eastern Washington, which are consistent playoff contenders, but literally have a budget of like $2 million. It feels like that school would be D3 if it went for how good their athletics are. So that could be the one positive for the FCS coming out of this.
Go ahead.
I'm glad Blue said that. Eastern Washington for the last 10 years, and they won a national title. And I think it was like 2010, they won a national title. Eastern Washington has been considering dropping athletics for like the last 3 years. Like that's like how much like they don't have the money. Like they're struggling. There are schools that you think when you look at the FCS football ratings, like a Wofford and some of those other schools that you think that's rolling in dough. And they're not. You go and you look up their athletic budgets, and they're rolling with like the Mississippi schools of the SWAC, and sometimes they're rolling less. Eastern Washington is a perfect example of a school that didn't have anything, but they're finding a way to make it work up there.
How does the NCAA how do they have the money to give, right, to throw the bag at, or do you just start siphoning? Because I mean, we know the NCAA makes billions off the March Madness tournament. Are you siphoning money from those tournaments and trickling it down? Because where you know, if the NCAA doesn't have control over the Power Five, where are they getting the money to? Are these institutions paying fees? Are they paying membership dues? Like, how does all that work? Blue, take that one for me.
I mean, for in terms of money, man, the NCAA is making it off everything. They're siphoning it from the back door. I mean, listen, they're going to make their money. Let's just keep it 100. BJ knows this. The NCAA is going to make money somehow. But in terms of making it more profitable, I mean, you've got to look at potentially not getting rid of the bidding process to host home games in the first round. You also got to look at advertisement deals, TV deals, better the TV deals. I think when you look at the numbers, I mean, there were playoff games in the semifinals and quarterfinals that were doing better numbers than Friday night football games of the G5 and things like that. So getting better TV deals, also getting some sort of purse for the winner, man. Like, you think Georgia came out losing money winning the national championship in the college football playoff? No way. No way. They're making money. So you gotta find a way to, one, create advertising dollars, two, new TV deals, and also find a way to structure the playoffs a little bit better. I think, when you look at the geographical type approach they've taken in the first two rounds now, where you don't have a Jackson State traveling to an Eastern Washington in the first round, you don't have a FAMU going to Montana, that's all been positive steps in the right direction. But if I'm the NCAA, you got to just restructure the whole playoffs, man. They've been broken. I think anybody who's been watching FCS football can tell you that, yes, it's the whole point is to announce a champion, but there's a lot of simple fixes just with fundraising and putting more effort into advertising and being a little bit smarter in how you structure it that could all earn money. And then the NCAA, if the playoffs are earning more money, because they're already taking money from the playoffs now, and they don't make any money. And so if you're making money off them now, what happens now when schools are making millions of dollars to go to the FCS playoffs? Then that's more money from the NCAA, which can be rotated into making improvements further down the line. So it's all one big circle, man. And so I just think the NCAA has been putting too much attention on the FBS and just kind of let the FCS playoffs kind of rot in the background.
All right, BJ, pop this one off. Who could be next? Who could be next in merging, taking over, takeovers? I feel like this is like big business, like just takeovers and mergers all over the place.
First place you want to look at South Bend, Indiana. If you look at a map, and we're in geography class, South Bend, Indiana is really, really, really close to Chicago. All right, it's right across the border from Michigan as well. Notre Dame, this is something I learned today. Notre Dame and the administration from the Big Ten have had bad blood damn near 100 years.
Really?
And it's bad. Like like they don't like each other at all. But for the money, I think that they can get it together. Look at Notre Dame. If Notre Dame bolts, and it looks like Notre Dame is going to bolt, all right, because the ACC is going to try to make a play for Notre Dame. I don't see it happening. I think Notre Dame is going to end up one or two places, SEC or Big Ten. All right. When Notre Dame bolts, your next look is going to be at Florida State, Miami, and Clemson. All right. Clemson ain't as much as a shoe-in as you think. This is what I mean by that. For as good as Clemson has been over the last 12 to 13 years, Clemson is a regional brand. Clemson has had to string together these 12, 13 years of success just to draw even to South Carolina. All right.
Wow.
So Clemson ain't the brand that people think they are. All right. They're just good. So conferences are looking at Clemson like, is this sustainable, or is Dabo a flash in the pan and you kind of go back to normal like once he leaves? But I think Florida State, Miami, I think Clemson has enough just from a cultural standpoint to get in the SEC. And then the question is going to be North Carolina. Big Ten wants North Carolina. SEC wants North Carolina. I think that's going to be your next test there. And I think Oregon and Washington, they're going to the Big Ten.
So, Blue, if you're Miami and Florida State and you take it to the SEC, do you listen, man? This becomes a juggernaut. Like this isn't like you know what I'm saying? This ain't the old days where a couple teams are, running the pack. You're into some heavy hitters. I mean, you're talking about Auburn, LSU, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma. And then on a bad day, South Carolina University can catch you. On a bad day, you know what I'm saying, you can get caught by Mizzou. So, do they want to smoke, or is it just for money? Like, we in here, we just partying it up to get the, you know what I'm saying? Is it just must be the money?
It's all money, bro. Everything today starts with money and then ends with football or competing. Because when you look at the overall structure of what the landscape is going to be, it's leaning toward SEC versus Big Ten. The ACC programs in Miami and Florida State are must gets for the SEC because the Big Ten's going to snatch Oregon and Washington. They already got the tie-in with Iowa State too, because they're going to bring Iowa State to compete with Iowa, and they're going to have the tie-in with the Kansas schools too, and they're probably going to snatch Kansas State and Kansas as well, just because of geography and past rivalries and things like that. So you're looking at the Big Ten, they're going to have everything above the Mason-Dixon line. That's all the Big Tens. There's nothing you can do about it. And so Florida State, Miami, even North Carolina, Clemson are must get for the SEC. And then also someone who I think has more value than people are expecting is Baylor. Baylor is going to be someone who is going to be snatched up. Got an excellent women's basketball program, men's basketball program. Their football has been top 10 for multiple times in the past 10 years since Art Briles left, and they've continued that success over 3 coaches now. And then you still have TCU, which has money behind that institution. And if they start getting that check from the SEC, watch out for TCU and what they're going to put up in terms of resources and facilities. So you have a lot of other programs that are still in play, in my opinion, and it's not going to be long for Oklahoma State to head to the SEC with Oklahoma either if this starts happening. And they got some really good programs outside of football too. And Mike Gundy is a personality as well. And on top of that, whoever gets UNC is getting Duke. They're not going to the different places. So you land UNC, now you have 2 of the best basketball brands in the country. And then that TV deal can be negotiated on the basketball side too. So there's a lot more here at play than just football. And so I think for the SEC, getting and locking down those Southern schools are going to be huge, in my opinion.
This is, I mean, it really just sounds like a movie. Like it really does. It doesn't sound like anything that's real. BJ, let me ask you this. How important is it for Miami and Florida to be a part of the SEC for recruiting? Because now they're not leaving you. You know, your in-state kids are 9 times out of 10 going to stay in-state because they know we're a part of the SEC. So how big is that for Florida and Miami to be a part of that SEC brand?
I think it's huge. Just because we talk about the television revenue, one of the things that Miami lacks is money. That's something that Miami coaches have always complained about. For as good as the U has been, they've done it without. But now, if you can get to the SEC, man, get some of that TV money in there. Now you can go to kids and say, "Hey, we got the TV money, we got the facilities. You're going to be playing in the best conference, one of the big 2 conferences." Man, that's hard to beat, and I think that's going to be key for not only Miami but Florida State as well.
All right, let me get some of these callers. 7909, you on the call? You live?
What's going on, gentlemen?
What's good?
Man, we're about to be the power 2, and it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be chaotic for like the next 6 months.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So my question is, particularly from the HBCU standpoint, do you think it makes sense to try to push to get another revenue sport in? Like, I know soccer is starting to become, it's like the fastest growing professional sport right now. Doesn't make sense for more HBCUs to get more soccer squads to try to get another stream of revenue. And I'm pretty sure the NCAA would probably love that as well. But it's going to be chaotic, man. It's just going to be 2 big conferences, and then the remaining teams that are left is probably going to put academics first and probably stay in some of the conferences that they're at. Like, I think the ACC will probably survive, but I think they'll probably focus on being a basketball conference. Like the football schools are going to leave, and then like the Carolina corridor with Duke, UNC, NC State, Wake Forest will stay there, and all the basketball squads will just stay there. So what do you guys think?
Hey, appreciate the call, man. What about them blending with the Big East? Is the Big East still alive? Let me just ask
Basketball.
In basketball.
All right. Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't crazy. I was like, I know there's a Big East. I just want to make sure. But why can't, if the ACC, if they do lose their big names, listen, I was hurt when Maryland left. I'm not even gonna lie. But now it's looking like the best thing Maryland's ever done is they jump because when they went to the Big Ten, I was like, what are we doing? Like, come on, man. Like Duke's our rivals, North Carolina's our rivals, but now Maryland over there, like we got a bag and we got it early. You know what I'm saying? They was at the club before all the girls came, and then now they in there late. And now they kind of rolling in. But you know, what about the ACC blended with the Big East just for basketball purposes to kind of build their brand back? You know, being a basketball conference anyway.
And that's actually pretty solid if you look at it, because the Big East is they're one of the better basketball conferences in the country. When you start to look at what they have over there with Providence and some of those other schools, man, they got a solid basketball league over there. And if you look, if they were to combine with the ACC from a basketball standpoint, that's a hell of a league.
Yeah, and Blue and BJ, y'all can touch on this. Somebody said, "What about the Arizona schools? You guys haven't brought up." Somebody said, "Off script, what do you think about the Arizona schools? What are they? Because y'all have been leaving them boys out."
They don't bring a lot to the table. I mean, in terms of football, I mean, they haven't been very good recently. But I mean, Arizona basketball is going to be a hot commodity. Arizona basketball is always on top, so you could probably see something not exactly like a Villanova, but kind of like a Villanova where they're playing with the big boys in terms of basketball, but their football program and other sports just aren't on that level.
Yeah, same thing, man. The Arizona schools, man, all they have is the Arizona basketball. They used to have Arizona State basketball as well as baseball. Arizona State, was a baseball powerhouse. They hadn't quite been there the last few years. But from a football standpoint, man, they don't generate the interest, the ticket sales or anything.
Okay, gotcha. Let's get to another caller. 3762 coming to you. Hey, caller, you live.
What's up? What's up, man? It's Keith. Appreciate y'all. I think one of the big things, though, with the ACC, and this is Keith, SGCMU, all that good stuff. But one of the things y'all forget about, Florida State has been trying to get out of the ACC for a long time.
Hold on. Hey, hold on, Keith, hold on. Like, is it just me or he sound like he's talking underwater?
He sounds good.
Oh, he sounds good? Maybe it's my headphones. My bad. Go ahead, Keith. Go ahead. You're good.
Oh, so one of the things we're forgetting with the ACC is Florida State's trying to get out of the conference for a long time. Like, that grant of rights contract has been something big. Like, listen to any of the major Florida State people, and they'll tell you, like, that grant of rights contract is a huge problem. And they've been trying to get to the Big Ten because the SEC gains nothing by getting Tallahassee, because it's not like you get a new market. You should get Tallahassee and Panama City. Like, you already got Jacksonville. Whereas for the Big Ten, they get a new market, they get Florida, and it also helps them with recruiting. And that's one of the big things, because Alabama's in Florida. Like, Alabama gets almost any kid from South Florida they want. But if the Big Ten can get Florida State and Miami, that fits the academic profile that both universities are trying to compete for, as well as a North Carolina and a UNC. That's where it's at, because within the SEC, Lynn Thompson dropped some games that people missed. When you're talking about two universities that can't work together, it's Florida State and Florida. They hate each other. Like, if you ever go to that game, the rivalry is different. It's not how FAMU and Cookman are friendly rivals. They actually hate each other to the point that sometimes they can't do business together. And I think that's what people should look at. It's probably the Big Ten for those two teams, because the Big Ten, you get access to the Florida recruits, you get access to Florida markets, and it continues that push to have major Florida cities, because, I mean, look at the market. So I'm just, I'm here in Tallahassee for my home visit, but it's my city, man. I follow Florida State, FAMU, all of them. And, I think that's going to be the one. Like, SEC, not as much.
All right, man. Appreciate the call. So what I got from that, because it really sounded like some Charlie Brown type stuff. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. But what I got from that is pretty much saying, he's saying that Big Ten should come scoop up Florida State, and add them to their market, and so they can have a pipeline to Florida. That doesn't make too much sense to me, because, I mean, if we're being honest, I don't really need your market. If we're being a whole buck, I really don't, because I got everything above the Mason-Dixon line. I got UC, I got LA, I got Chicago, I got the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? I just think it will work a lot better if Florida State just slid right over to the SEC. But what do you guys?
I mean, it would make sense for the Big Ten to grab them for the TV market, but I think they fit the SEC. I mean, geographically, rivalries, I mean, everything. Because, I mean, Florida State has a history with Auburn. Florida State has a history with Florida. Florida State has a history with multiple other SEC teams. So, Georgia, I mean, I just can't see Florida State going to the Big Ten personally. I don't think if the SEC can let it, if the SEC has any say, Florida State's coming to the SEC. Now, whether Florida State accepts the SEC or accepts the Big Ten, that's a different thing. But I don't think the SEC is looking at Florida State like, oh, don't worry about them. We have that market. Let them go to our other conference. So that would be, I mean, that's like telling your business competitor, like, yeah, bro, take them because I guess we don't need them. But I don't think that's how he's looking at it.
Got you.
And I think also if you go approach the Big Ten, your academics better be up to par. Because they are real. What's being lost in this? They're pulling in schools, but you go look at where UCLA and USC are from an academic standpoint. Hey, you better have them academics in order.
Hey, your boy called in, BJ. Mr. Campbell, I'm bringing him on real quick. Hey, caller, you live.
First of all, BJ nephew, love to follow you on Twitter. Great job. But I told all of y'all this over a month ago. I told y'all all of this, how all this was going to play out. I told you exactly why they were going to get more money. I told you about the whole demographics, about Chicago and New York, and now they pulled in LA. I want to jump on something, though, about Florida State and Miami and the Big Ten. See, sometimes when you're competing against somebody, you want to box them in. And Blue should know this. Blue, if you remember, Florida State tried to get in the SEC before South Carolina. And University of Florida blocked it. They were like, heck no. Heck no. We do not want Florida State nowhere near it because we don't want them to raise their profile. So I'm telling you again, unlike Texas A&M, who tried to block it, but Texas has more money, and that's the reason why they couldn't block. Because remember, Texas A&M tried to block Texas from coming. Florida has more money in that state, and they would do everything possible not to let Florida State get in the SEC. They're not going to let it. And the Big Ten could come right in there and say, Miami, with that, not being funny, Jewish money down in Miami, it's a profile. They bring in Carolina, they bring in Duke, and they ask Florida State to get their shit together, and then they bring them in. So now we've got a nice little southern arc. We've got the Northeast. We've got the Midwest, and now we've got the West. And now we can box the SEC in a little bit.
Well,
and to that point, wait a minute, one last thing I'm going to say. Then we've got the Miami market. We've got Orlando. We got Jacksonville. I've got New York. I got Philadelphia. I got Charlotte. I got Indianapolis. I've got Chicago, and I got LA. That's a hell of a package you can go talk to people about.
That's crazy. Mr. Campbell, let me ask you this. Does that, you just really, I mean, if they go and if the Big Ten goes and scoops up Miami and Florida State, you really just rebuilt the ACC in your own, like you literally have the ACC in your backyard again.
Yep. Well, exactly. Well, see, this is what this is all about, because let's be, and I'll give you guys a little bit of history and how things come back to bite you in the ass on the Pac-10. Before, I'll tell you guys, Oklahoma and Texas were wanting to leave the Big 12 and go to the Pac-10. Because of the academic profile. You know why the Pac-10 didn't want them to go? Because Oklahoma's academics weren't up to par. Because they were going to take Texas, but Texas said, no, Oklahoma's got to come along for the ride. And they said no. That was about 20 years ago. And now look at what happened now. Just think if the Pac-10 had made that move. Because the SEC had expanded. And Texas and Oklahoma saw it. And they said, for us, our profile. And remember, when you look at geographically, they kind of fit, Texas, Southwest, but the West and everything. Then you had Colorado, you had Nebraska, and all those. So they kind of felt that kind of fit right there. And then Arizona was right there and all that. And the Pac-10 turned them down. And now that will be the reason why they won't have a conference anymore. So again, when you're looking at this, these guys are looking at these major TV markets that they've got, that they can go up and get mega ratings. And then again, look at the name brands that you get. Miami's building itself up. Who wouldn't want to see a SC Miami game?
Ooh.
Who wouldn't want to see when Florida State went up there and ruined Desmond Howard's year up there in Michigan? Who wouldn't want to see that game?
Yeah.
Those are games that you can package that you usually wouldn't even see. So those are the things about it. So for me, yes, geographically, I agree with Blue. Florida State should have been in the SEC, kind of like, you should have been in the SWAC. But they have been blocked for years because they have begged to get in the SEC. And they're like, no, and Florida will keep blocking them. they will keep blocking them because those Florida grads don't want nothing for Florida State to get bigger at all. So if I'm Florida State, I'm sticking my finger up to Florida, and I'm taking that Big Ten money because it's going to be way more money than they will get from the SEC anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll just tell you guys, great show and everything, but I knew all this was going to come into play because I saw it happen. But the one thing I wanted to make a point, and this is to the SWAC commissioner. And Scott, I meant to send you this clip before the show because this would have been apropos. And Paul Feinbaum talked about this, and I think BJ must have saw Paul Feinbaum today. That's great research that you're talking about, some of the things you're quoting. But one of the things that he talked about, they asked him, why did the Pac-10 look like it's about to die? Because the SEC and the Big Ten started their networks and put all of their content, and that's exactly what he said, Olympic sports and everything on their networks. And that gave them a buffer to add extra money. So again, why are we not following the same thing that the Big Ten and SEC has done? This is insane to me when you don't have to recreate the wheel. When you have the content that people want to see, and the thing about it is, it can be specific to a demographic that you can sell to McDonald's, to Coca-Cola, to Pepsi, because they pay for demos. He can go and say, I've got this black demo of college-educated people from Dallas to North Carolina, Georgia, and they make X amount of money. Sponsor this. And you know what? We sitting up here still fighting about should they let Scotty go to the press conferences and stuff. We behind, bro. We got to stop it. So, great show, guys.
Hey, appreciate the call, Mr. Campbell. BJ, you've been entangled with the SWAC since, knee high to a grasshopper or something like that, knee high to a fly, whatever.
long time.
Long time. What you've seen the transformation of college football. Where does the SWAC, because the one thing as I've been covering, the SWAC has a history more than most FCS conferences, just with the brands and the NFL Hall of Famers that have come out of the SWAC and HBCU football. Why has it been so long for them to get on board with where technology and entertainment is going towards, where like 2022 is currently?
Cool. I'm gonna give you an example. And this stretches beyond the conference. It stretches directly to our culture. Black people are hesitant to change. Anything that's different than the way that we've always doing it, we're going to question it. I'll give you an example. I think it was with Tuesday, Wednesday, Perry brought up a question. It ain't even a real scenario. It's just a question about the Jackson State and Southern game being played in Jerry World. All right. You know what kind of ruckus that started? It was just an idea. All right. It's all it was an idea. Man, people jumped on that, man, so anti, man, so negative. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I think, man, if I go back, man, and look at it, been going to SWAC games since, 89? Literally grew up in the conference. Dad played at Bama State when it was the SIAC. He did spend 1 year in the SWAC. But I've seen the conference grow, man, because I remember, back in the day, man, going up to the press box and you had, the cats with everybody in the press box was smoking cigarettes. And it was like, man, these old dudes, and man, we were talking about getting, the BET games were all that we had. And I saw that transform the college sports TV. And I remember the first time we saw the SWAC on ESPN from a game standpoint, that being a big deal. And I've seen the changes, happen throughout the conference. And the changes have actually sped up since Dr. McKinnell. I'm going to be honest with you. They've sped up because before that, Dewar Sharp, if Dewar Sharp came on this show right now and he had on the suit and he had a sign on that said Dewar Sharp, you couldn't pick him out of a lineup if he told you what he did for a living. All right. If he spared you that. All right. So that was the difference. But you can see Charles McClellan. You didn't see Dewar Sharp. And I think you're starting to see the things now where we, have different things. I would like to see the SWAC digital content kind of grow and speed up, because wouldn't it be nice to go to the SWAC website, man, and look at the 1994 Southern and Alcorn game? And we talk about it. People want to see it, to go back and see that 1999 SWAC championship game. So I think that it's coming, but we are reluctant to change as a people, man.
Let me get back to these callers. JB, I'm going to take 8181 in front of you. All right. 8181, you live. Talk to me.
Hey, Scotty, it's me, the advisor. I called in a couple weeks ago.
What's good? How you doing?
But yeah, just wanted to give a couple perspectives and maybe questions for you guys. So going back to the FSU and UM going to the SEC and Big Ten. So to me, anything's possible because we're clearly seeing money talks. So, I mean, it's possible for them to go to the Big Ten, but I think it's possible to go to the SEC because being in Tallahassee before, I think FSU and UF and Gainesville are more aligned like academically, but as far as athletically, FSU and UM are more rivals. And historically, they're really not true ACC schools. They both have either been an independent or been in the Big East at once upon a time. So I think it's possible, but it also could go to the Big Ten too. And then just a couple questions. What do y'all think about what are going to start happening in the bowl games? Because now that we have SC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, what does that do for the Rose Bowl since that has the Big Ten and Pac-12 tie-in? Do they keep that? Does it dissolve? And then, of course, with all the realignment, what do the other bowl games look like with so many conferences having tie-ins, with so many things are switching up? So just those type of questions, and even something I consider today now with so many NIL deals, and now you're having more travel for student athletes. Do y'all think that we're going to get to a point where some of these student athletes are going to have like managers or agents even coming into college? Because essentially now they're really professionals if you're getting $1 million contract before you get on campus. So how do you help them negotiate that? How do you help them sort out things once you get there? So just some interesting things I've been thinking about. Just wanted to get y'all thoughts about it. But thanks, and I hope y'all have a good night.
Hey, man, great questions. Appreciate the call. So two-part question from him. He said, with the bowl games, with a lot of schools having tie-ins, how does the bowl game matchup look? And whoever wants to take that.
They'll probably just get rid of the tie-ins. I mean, ultimately, because the bowl games are just going after money. So the Rose Bowl isn't going to, try to prohibit, two Big Ten teams coming in or even an SEC team coming in. And also, the tie-ins are kind of at one time were only serving a purpose of making sure like different conferences were represented, and also they were due to location and things like that. And now as we see college football going away from geography matters at all, I mean it's just a nationwide type sport now. I would imagine all the bowl games drop their requirements. The only ones you might see is Hawaii will have Hawaii in it every year. The Potato Bowl will have Boise State like usual. But, in terms of the Cotton Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, etc., I think those will go away from, in terms of tie-ins and things like that. And especially some of the lower bowl games that would actually probably like to have bigger teams play in them, that would actually probably benefit more, like the there's a few bowl games up north in like Michigan and Detroit and things like that they usually have like Eastern Michigan play like Bowling Green, and I mean no one cares about that. And so for them, getting rid of the tie-ins could potentially give you a really nice matchup of Michigan State, Florida State, or someone like that, and depending on what happens there. So as we see conferences go away from geography, I would imagine the tie-ins will as well.
BJ, let me ask you this. Do you take, when you take away, I thought most of the Rose Bowl games kept the California because of, for attendance basis, audience and, keep it regional. But if you take a tie-ins, I mean, do you expect, a Maryland, the Maryland fan base to travel all the way out to California to go see a football game? Like, is that where we're coming down to?
Yeah. I mean, I think with the Rose Bowl, they've been the most reluctant to change. It was an act of God to get the Rose Bowl to join the alliance. I mean, and to this day, the Rose Bowl has it written the way that the Rose Bowl contract is written. They either play New Year's Day or the day after New Year's. Like, that's the way their contract is written. It's going to be Big Ten. It's going to be Big Ten versus Pac-12. And they were really reluctant to join the alliance. And I think that they've been the most slow to move. But I think with this, I think the Rose Bowl is going to look at the money and what that game means. And I think that they're going to be on board. And I think in the Rose Bowl, you're probably going to get Big Ten ACC.
That's going to be good. That's going to be a nice matchup. JB, I'm coming to you. Hey, JB, you live.
Gentlemen, how you doing? I'm enjoying this chatter. BJ Jones, Scotty, Blue. This is like heaven watching you guys converse, man.
Appreciate it.
No cap. This is good stuff. Good stuff. Actually, a couple questions. The first question immediately comes to mind is this. Is there a media war you think involved between Fox and ESPN for the two conferences? Because that's kind of what this looks like a little bit.
That's exactly what it is.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the second question is, and this is something that I actually, once again, see in the chat. News broke about the stuff yesterday. We immediately see a rehashed article, reposted article about the super conferences again between the SWAC and the MEAC. And the first thing people bring up is, well, the big schools do it. Why can't we do it too? First of all, mid-major FCS and P5 FBS have different kinds of money, different kinds of reach, different kinds of money, different kinds of media markets. Why we keep trying to push this, I have no idea. And then also with the fact with the non-revenue sports being affected by a move like this also, because we're talking about spending the geographic map because, between, I guess, going up from like DC, Maryland area all the way to Houston, Texas. Now, football-wise, you might get something, but your non-revenue sports are going to be a killer. It's going to crush those folks. And then we talk about the TV deals that we get. What kind of TV deals does MEAC and SWAC have now? And I guess the last question is, of course, you guys mentioned this earlier, is this kind of super conference across different time zones, is this even feasible for FCS conferences as a whole? Or are we just trying to do something, pushing this because we want to stay isolated in terms of where we are?
All right, man. Appreciate the call, JB. All right, so kind of backtrack. He brought up super conference with the SWAC and MEAC. He also brought up, and when you answered that with the Fox and ESPN, because I did see you have a tweet about that, BJ, when it came to you said it's just a battle between Fox Sports and ESPN. But the super conference, I know we talked about it a little bit earlier. Is it feasible? Just in both of you guys' opinions, is it feasible for
no?
Realistically, no.
I mean,
I can break down the numbers and tell you why. I don't want to just leave it at that.
Oh, listen, you know me, I love some numbers now. I love some receipts. If you got receipts, go ahead and drop them on them.
All right. So one of the conferences that struggle because they feel like it's too spread out is the Missouri Valley. All right. Take Youngstown State in the state of Ohio. Then you have North Dakota and some of those other schools. Youngstown State routinely makes 14-hour trips in conference. They want to leave the Missouri Valley bad, all right? And the Missouri Valley, from a revenue generating standpoint, is number one revenue. They're usually like 1-2 revenue generating conference in FCS, all right? And if you don't know who the Missouri Valley is, they have North Dakota State, South Dakota, Eastern Illinois, some of those other teams, right? They feel like that conference is too spread out. They have 2 TV deals, right? So they have their ESPN joint, but then they have a local television deal that they have with individual television markets. Reason being, those states are densely populated. They don't have a huge population base. Also add that those schools they're not going up against FBS football. They are the biggest thing in that state. So North Dakota State, you look at it, they average, I think, 16,000 people per home game. But when you look at their television ratings, when they play games at home, particularly when they're going against South Dakota and some of their rivals, they're only getting about 400,000 views. But look how many people are in that footprint. All right, we're talking about states that don't. I'm not even sure if North Dakota even has 1 million people. So you start taking that number. That's a huge number. Right? Let's fast forward that to the SWAC. Right? Jackson State FAMU last year drew 750,000 people for ESPN game, right? We got the Florida market and Mississippi market. They're significantly heavily populated, right? That gives you more population, even though we had more viewers. When you talk about comparing that to the population, that's how the ratings aren't as high. And I think that's something that people need to start thinking about. We like to think about, hey, we drew well for the Celebration Bowl. We drew well for the MEAC SWAC Challenge. But when you go back and you look at the ratings, there are a lot more games that didn't even get 50,000 viewers than there were those games that got over 1 million. All right. So if we want to do that, we have to show that if we're not going to go into the stadium, that we're supporting those Wednesday games. We're supporting those ESPN Plus and those ESPN U games. There's no reason. I posted the SWAC championship and even put the link for the championship games that weekend. If you look at where the SEC and all those other championship games were, of course, they were 15, 11 million. But all the way down to the bottom was the ACC. They were the smallest, 2.5 million. You go down to the SWAC, we didn't even get 150,000 views for a championship game that was on ESPN2.
That's wild. So so not really the argument, but the numbers are literally per capita. So, you know what I'm saying? Per capita, how much are you getting? And it's something that you said, Blue, is like you're selling out a stadium. I mean, when you talk about the Cincinnati and those little small market FBS programs where, you know, it's 30,000 and they're filling up, you know, every time 30,000 or however you put it. It's all about a per capita situation in that. So it makes sense. Now, go ahead, Blue, if you got something to say.
And I mean, and me and you have talked about this off camera, Scotty, about how a lot of, when you look at the SWAC, they're in a way better location than most FCS conferences. You got Baton Rouge market, you got the Houston market, you got the Tallahassee market, you got the Montgomery and Birmingham market because they share that because Birmingham is not that far from Montgomery. And you have all these large markets in the SWAC. And so when you compare that to other FCS conferences, they do not have that type of population and that type of support in those things. I promise you, I mean, Fargo, North Dakota, I don't know if they got 500,000 people in that city. No, there's no way. I mean, that city is nothing. And then you look at, was it Cheney, Washington with Eastern Washington? They might not even have 30,000 people. They won't even have enough people in the city to half fill Jackson State Stadium. So you gotta take everything into account. And also on top of that, for the super conferences, FAMU and Bethune-Cookman literally just left the MEAC because they didn't want to travel to Delaware State and Morgan State. And now you're going to be like, let's all combine and let's have Morgan traveling to Texas Southern and PV traveling to South Carolina State. And if money is the big thing, like, and this is what gets me with the conference realignment is super conferences don't work in smaller markets. And this isn't a shot at the SWAC or MEAC. Super conferences wouldn't work in the Big Sky or MVFC or SoCon. You have to have money. The reason that these Power Fives can do that is USC is paying their football coach $13 million next year. That's bigger than like 25% of the budgets in FCS right now. And probably almost 100% in the SWAC. The salary for Lincoln Riley is more than the SWAC's entire budget. So it's not comparable. And so to have the super conference and move to FBS and all that is just, there is not one shred of evidence anybody in the world can offer right now that makes any sense on how that would ever work.
Got you.
I think unless you do one thing, watch out to see what the Big Ten does. Because if they go East, Central, and do something like that, well, you can break up that travel. It may be feasible.
And the thing to me is if you can do all these things and listen, I don't have a problem with a SWAC super conference or HBCU super conference. My thing is this: if you're not negotiating your value, you're not going to last very long. There's no way you can put all these teams and markets together and you telling me a company can't give you $20 million a year. If you can't get $15 to $20 million a year with all those FCS brands, somebody's not doing a job. That's all I got to say. Somebody is not, it has to be feasible. It has to be able, if you're combining 20 schools, or BJ, would you pick and choose, or are you just smashing everybody together?
I would say you got to pick and choose because you got to be smart. You got to be smart about it.
So
you don't want to just grab people just to grab them. You want to grab people that have a following, that's going to draw in their local market. Because when you go to the television people, that's what they're going to want to know.
Yeah.
What do those people's games look like?
Yeah.
And does the surrounding area, are they going to tune in to watch them?
And see, this is the thing.
Exactly.
This is the thing for me. This is why I have a problem with what the SWAC has been doing, because you have no leverage coming up. Like, you haven't built anything to show somebody like, listen, this is what because what you think ESPN is going to use what they've been ESPN is going to give you chump change because they're like, bro, we already know your ratings. We know your stats. We know everything about. So you can't make something up and be like, yo, you got to give us 10 million. Because ESPN is going to be like, yo, we don't really have to put your games on. We really don't. But the thing is the SWAC should have been having a backup to whatever they were doing with ESPN so that they can have something to fall back on to go to another network and say, listen, we got this. Our numbers look like this. Our demographic is this. Yo, we want 15 to 20 million. Now you can go back to ESPN and say, yo, Fox is willing to give us 15. What we want 20 from you. You know what I'm saying? We already got a partnership. We like you, da-da-da. But when you don't have leverage, you just take whatever you can get. And I just think like the SWAC and HBCUs have to negotiate their worth in regards to what they're trying to get.
And I know we talked about it on the roundtable, I think last year when the expansion talk came up again. And I think I love what BJ said, and I completely echo it, is more bodies in the room isn't necessarily a good thing. So a super conference that has 16 teams, but 13 don't offer any value means nothing to me. I mean, it really and truly, when you look at the SWAC and MEAC, I'll ask you guys before I give my answer, how many teams in the SWAC and MEAC right now offer any value in terms of TV revenue, attendance, and or brand recognition?
You probably got 5 or 6. 5, I'll say 5. You got Southern, Graham, Jackson, FAM. I would take the Alabamas because they just Alabamas. So you got that's 7. And then you got to have North Carolina T's gone. Well, if you want to bring them back,
yeah.
If you want to bring them back, South Carolina State, but it's not because of their fans, it's because of their pedigree of the football.
I wouldn't put South Carolina State in there. If South Carolina State made the celebration last year and played Mississippi Valley State, that game wouldn't hit 500,000 viewers.
But you still got to have good football, and they have a pipeline to the NFL.
We're talking strictly finances. We're not talking on the field play. We're talking, are you going to bring value to the conference in terms of negotiation power? And I don't think you can include either Bama school. I don't think you include South Carolina State. When I'm looking at it, you got Southern, you got FAM, Jackson State, North Carolina A&T, and Grambling. That might be it. And then if you can bring Tennessee State in potentially, they could be in there. But really and truly, man, Mississippi Valley State, as great as the history is not offering any value right now.
UAPB.
Texas Southern, UAPB, PV, they might have some finances behind the scenes, but they're not bringing any value. Howard in terms of brand potentially, but there's a big drawback on the field right now in terms of performance and moving up. And really, Bethune-Cookman right now is a disaster behind the scenes. I mean, where are you bringing any value in terms of like a super conference and saying, because I see on Twitter all the time, this is a time to form a HBCU super conference and go to FBS and all this, and it's nothing bringing all these teams together when you only got really 5 teams that, in my opinion, could potentially even think about getting the balls rolling on moving up. You're just adding up, you're just stuffing a bunch of people in a car and going on a road trip, man. Like, there's only a few people that paid for the trip, and you're bringing everybody along, man. This is not going to work.
Hey, man, I said this last year, man. If you don't have the right people, you don't have a super conference. You just have a conference that's taking up a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
Would y'all consider a Big Ten super conference if you took out Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State? If you had a super conference of Maryland, Rutgers, Syracuse, come on, man.
Oh, hey, whoa, slow your roll, bro. Why are we getting shots? We're good.
My bad. Listen, we'll keep
Ralph
Maryland in
Friesen
there.
ain't walking through that door.
We got a brand, okay? Don't disrespect Maryland. We got a brand. We got a basketball national.
Maryland.
You know what I'm saying? Don't come for us, man. We got Juan Dixon, man. Steve Blake. Don't play. Don't play. We got legends. Let me get some of these callers, man. Hey, Coach Green, you live.
Man, what up, man? Hey, like the new intro, man.
Appreciate it.
The new intro for the round table.
Appreciate it.
That dude cold, bro. Whoever he is. He cold.
Appreciate it.
Hey, BJ. I bet Tulane kicking themselves as far as like the SEC from leaving the SEC a long time ago.
Yeah, but that wasn't 100% Tulane choice if you go back and look at the history of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that wasn't 100% a Tulane choice.
Yeah. Now, this is my question for both BJ and Blue. are more moves gonna happen once the NCAA have their meeting? Once everybody had a meeting, the NCAA, and everybody sit down and talk about restructuring the rules and all that. Will more moves happen where alignment wise?
Absolutely,
Yes,
on every level.
That's what everyone's waiting on. I mean, that's literally the next domino to fall.
Yeah. And as far as Tuskegee, BJ, what's the timeline for them making a move? And would the move most likely be the SWAC? And if they do make that move, who's the other team that gonna join them?
So I think with Tuskegee, man, they got a lot of stuff they got a lot of blueprints. I got to see some cranes, some dirt moving before I can really take that stuff serious. I'm gonna be honest with you. When our people put out stuff like that, man, I treat that like the building fund. To be honest with you, I treat that like the building fund. I mean, it's nice. You got some nice drawings. You have a great, school of architecture down there. But I'm gonna have to see some dirt moving. Because I mean, you're asking that school to do a lot. We're talking about not only building up facilities, we're talking about funding extra sports, and that money has to come from somewhere. Now, Tuskegee got the money, but you have to sustain it over so long. So I'm gonna have to see how that works before I'm willing to say, "Oh yeah, Tuskegee definitely make this thing happen."
And who would and then if it actually do come for risk, who would the other team be? Who would the other team would the SWAC be looking to?
I'm looking straight at Nashville.
Tennessee State.
Straight at Nashville.
Yep. All right, Coach Gray, appreciate it because you're taking too long. All right. Like you just trying let me I had it. Man, write y'all questions. If you got questions, write them down, man. Don't be just out here shooting from the hip. You can't be me on my platform. I'm out here shooting from the hip. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. You can't shoot from the hip. Next question. Come on, man. Let me see. I'm going 3503. Hey man, you live.
Hey, what's going on, Scotty? It's Eric from Jersey.
What's good, man? Talk to me.
What's good? First off, Blue, I need you to put some respect on Rutgers' name. I know we ain't been there early. And 05 to like 2010, we had a run. So just give us some love.
Y'all did.
But you know, I go hard for the HBCU, Scotty, off-script 10 or all that. One question I have for you guys is, what do you think? I'm not sure if this question was already asked, but what do you think is going to happen with the FBS matchups? The out of conference stuff. Now that all this crazy realignment is happening, and it's happening sooner than we thought. And then we'll start there. And I think I had another one, but I'll let you guys answer that one first.
Hey, we're gonna let you go because there's other callers. But if you have another question, you can ask it. Go ahead.
Just call back in.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I'm good on that one then.
Okay, too easy, man. So the out of conference stuff, I mean, if they're going power 2, I don't think there's really going to be too much out of conference anything. Because, I mean, you have so many games within your own conference. I mean, so many good matchups. Do you really need to play anything out of conference? I mean, maybe if you want to see a Florida and Florida State every now and again. But, you know what I'm saying? But if you're getting a power 2 and you're getting all the heavy hitters, I don't really need to play anything out of conference. But you guys can step on it.
The big out of conference games will stay. Florida State will always play. If Clemson, South Carolina, regardless of what happens, will always play. Oregon State, Washington State. Listen, even with Oklahoma going to the SEC, they're still going to play Oklahoma State. It's just a given. And for me, you potentially could have some out of conference matchups come through. You never know what type of scheduling alliances come about. The remaining teams in the Big 12 and Pac-12 are still going to want to play those teams in the 2 big conferences. So I still think you'll have out of conference games. Now, what might happen is you might have less of those less week 1 matchups, because these past few years, man, the week 0, week 1 matchups have been ridiculous across college football. That might go away, but I still think you'll still see some big out of conference matchups regardless.
I think what it's going to do is going to hurt FCS teams because now those schools, those power 2, they're not going to drop down and schedule those games. So I think you're going to see more FCS, Sunbelt FCS, Conference USA.
Yeah,
but I think those big 2 and Power 5 games, I think those are gone.
Got you. Hey, we got 15 minutes left in the stream. Make sure you get your calls in. Have your question on deck. All right, 9762 coming to you. Hey, caller, you live. Talk to me.
Hey, fella, what's going on? This is Gabriel from Memphis.
What's up, G?
Real quick, okay, so on my way in from work, I was listening to ESPN radio, and then I also saw it on the web that Big Ten is waiting to hear from Notre Dame. So if that happens, how y'all think that that Notre Dame is going to fare in that? And I'm gone.
All right, appreciate it. Well, I mean, I know y'all touched on that earlier, so if you guys want to rehash that, because people be jumping on the stream late and stuff. So,
I mean, I think they'll be fine. I mean, they'll get a bunch of money. They don't already need money, but they'll get even more money. I think Marcus Freeman's going to build a really, really strong program. They got a basketball team that can compete. Their baseball team made the College World Series this year, if I'm not mistaken. So Notre Dame will be just fine in the Big Ten. They pretty much already play like half Big Ten, half ACC schedule, so they'll be fine.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, most of their rivals are in the Big Ten, and I think the only hurdle that stopped them from going in the Big Ten before is they've had bad blood with Big Ten leadership, stretching back a century, honestly.
Wow. Now
and NBC TV money too. And now that the Big Ten has passed them, now that NBC contract looks dead in the water.
Yeah,
man, I'll tell you this: I would love to see a Notre Dame and USC matchup again. I think that would be out freaking standing. Coach Harp, I'm coming to you. 1806. Hey, what's up, Coach? Talk to us.
How you doing, Scotty? I want to say something from a historical point of view, but I ain't gonna put you down offline.
Okay.
So everything is kind of going full circle right now. If you look at the resurgence of the HBCUs, so historically, if you look back, the HBCUs obviously were the original powers, and then it became the Big Ten and USC and UCLA. If you remember, after integration, everybody fled to the Midwest or the West Coast. If you look at John Wooden's basketball team, he had people from New York, all across the United States. USC made the SEC or the Southern Conference start getting black players when they beat, Alabama. And then again with the resurgence of HBCU football. So I'm glad to see it come full circle as a northern, Midwest guy. You want to, represent your region of the country. And I think the Big Ten is basically trying to, like you've been saying all show, try to submit themselves again. Originally they were, because like I said, they had more black players and, all the other teams that, didn't want to acquiesce to the current times. And that's how the Big Ten blew up, and that all the infrastructure and all the buildings and stuff. So, everything's coming back in full circle. So I'm excited to watch it unfold.
Appreciate it. Any questions, or you just wanted to give us some historical aspect?
No, like I said, I just want to drop that, and I ain't going to hate offline or anything.
Hey, no problem. Appreciate the call, Coach. All right, so hey, we don't got no more callers on, but you guys got about I do 10 minutes, but if you guys want to have some final thoughts before anybody comes in, we can also have. So, Blue, final thoughts on the realignment and your thoughts on the NCAA meeting. What are you hoping to get out of it? What are you hoping to see from it for both of y'all? That's the two-part for both of you guys.
I mean, man, this is just the beginning. I think you're going to see more teams to not start moving. I think you're going to see money start flying across the table, and I think you're going to see a lot of teams put themselves first and do what's best for them moving forward. And so I'm really excited to see it. As much as I would say, I'm really not super excited to see this happen, but I think, a lot of people don't love change. I think when you look back at college football, man, it's been changing consistently, and I think it'll all work itself out, hopefully. And I mean, listen, it's going to be insane these next few weeks. But in terms of the NCAA meeting, man, I just want them to see. I want to see if they have any forward-thinking progress at all, or if they have like a single idea about what the temperature in the room is, because they've been really tone deaf these past few years, and I'm very, very skeptical that they're going to be able to put the right foot forward and be proactive in all this. And in my opinion, I don't have a lot of hope for the NCAA meeting. I'm just ready for it to happen, so all these teams that already secretly know what they're going to do can announce their moves, and we can kind of start picturing and putting the pieces together for the future of the college football landscape.
Gotcha. What you got, B?
I think with the NCAA meeting, it's going to be very interesting. Like Blue said, man, where do we go? The Power 5 commissioners already right now have an adversarial relationship with Mark Emmert and the NCAA. And that's been the case for a few years. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out. What's going to be the new NCAA legislation, because you have Division II schools that are looking to make that jump to Division I FCS football, but we don't know what the parameters are going to be. So I think once you have that and we know what it is, I think that's when you're going to start seeing movement top down. And I think also this, keep in mind, everything that we've ever said was too big to fail, eventually it failed. The beast will eventually eat itself. Remember, baseball was too big to fail. A couple of strikes later, baseball has never recovered. In the mid-2000s, NASCAR was too big to fail. Went a little bit too far left with the car tomorrow and some of the other things. NASCAR has not recovered since. College football, we say, is too big to fail. Two things that made college football great. First of all, it was a regional sport. When college football was great, it was a regional sport. All right, it was a newspaper and radio sport. And now we're making it national. Even with it being regionalized, we got different styles of play. This region plays this way. This region plays this way. Now you're making it national. What that takes away is some of those regional rivalries that we've had around for 100+ years. And the key to that is that's how college football grew. Hey, man, me and Scotty, man, our dads takes us down to good old State U. And, man, we go over to A&M and other schools that are close. That's going to be gone when you're playing a national game. So it might not affect college football for the next 10, 15 years, but that next generation, those car rides are not going to be the same. UCLA and USC are nowhere near. The closest school to them in their conference is over 1,400 miles away. It's a 21-hour drive. You can count that out. It's going to be interesting to see how this impacts the next generation of college football fans, and does the beast, actually eat itself?
Wow. I like that. And then do you see, before I get to you, Dre, and Dre, you'll be my last caller, what does college football look like without the NCAA? And can you guys picture what it might look like without the NCAA being the over, or just say the step parent that can't control the kids?
Hopefully less corrupt, man. The NCAA has been the biggest problem in terms of upper management of college football for the longest time. And I've been so vocal, man. We've had our show for almost 4 years now. That's day one. The NCAA needed to go. And so I'm hoping without the suffocation of the NCAA sitting on top of college football, it will allow something new to grow in terms of a more not fair, but more balanced approach to what college football needs to do moving forward. I think when you look at all the changes coming with college football, from NIL to recruiting practices to roster management to stadium finances, facility building, everything, I'm hoping that if you give the power to the top conferences, that they can come up with something a little bit better than what the NCAA, because the bottom line for the NCAA was the bottom line in making money, and they were willing to take advantage of athletes. They were willing to take advantage of schools. I mean, the NCAA, in my opinion, as long as it's lasted, was one of the worst things to happen to college football. So I do think college football will be better if they move away from the NCAA.
And you, B?
Man, NCAA, there were a lot of corrupt players in the game, and I ain't gonna let the athletic directors or commissioners off the hook either. Because, like you said, at the end of the day, this is about the money. Other sports, athlete well-being be damned. All right, this is about the money at the end of the day. And I think the life without the NCAA, I think you're going to take the top 60 programs in college football. They're going to be in one or two divisions. And I think that's where your national championship is going to come from. That's going to be major college football, which is essentially what it is now.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you're going to have. And I think for everyone else, let's just go figure it out. I think that, for the G5 and the FCS, I think everyone else is going to figure it out. But I think that you'll see the College Football Playoff Committee managing and governing those 60 schools, and that's going to be major college football moving forward.
Wow. All right, Dre, you're gonna be live. You're gonna be the last caller. Hey, what's up, Dre? You live?
Hey, what's up? Hey, I got a question. How much pressure does this put on the FCS commissioners amongst the realignment? Because sometimes they kind of sometimes they're kind of late to the party. So how much pressure does it put on them to get this right?
I appreciate the call, Dre.
I mean, from the FCS standpoint, I don't think there's as much pressure as it is at the FBS level, because you got some conferences up there that are on their last leg. Because for the FCS though, man, I think it's really and truly the commissioners who know the landscape and are going to be patient and make the right moves and kind of slow play it, I think are actually the right ones. I think the ones that rush into it, make rash decisions, and try to get ahead of it without knowing what's coming are going to be the ones that are going to get blindsided by something. So I think when you look at some of the top conferences in the FCS with the CAA, Big Sky, MVFC, you haven't, even when the CAA lost James Madison, they didn't panic. That the MVC hasn't panicked during realignment at the FCS level. The Big Sky has not panicked. They added Southern Utah. That was the only move. The SoCon has not panicked. All those top conferences are going to do the same thing. They're not going to panic. They're going to wait and see what the landscape is looking like, and they're going to make the correct move, because it's overall the chess game, and it's not who does it first. It's who does it right, and who sets up their conference in the long run. And this is important. There is pressure. Don't get me wrong. But for me, I don't think there's pressure to make a move immediately, because for the FCS, this next move for the conferences could be something to set them up 10, 20, 50, 25 years down the line. So if you make the wrong move here, you could be paying for it for a long time. So I think you're going to see the top FCS conferences take their time, make sure they make the right decision. And I think you might see some of these newer conferences with less experienced commissioners make a run at something or try to jump ahead of the gun. And there might be some who hit the jackpot and get lucky, but there's going to be some who make the wrong decision. And you're going to see what happens when you don't have good leadership in the right positions.
Absolutely.
I think you can look no further than the WAC. I think they came out with an idea. They swung for the fences. I think I think schools kind of saw the writing on the wall and saw that they weren't going to come into fruition, and went from there. Excuse me, that's my dog.
No, you good.
He ain't big. He like the size of an Egg McMuffin. So like he's not like a pit bull or anything like that. Shut up. But I think that's what you're going to see. And I think you're going to see the commissioners who pretty much roll together, they're going to roll together. I think that you're going to see the Missouri Valley, the Big Sky. Believe it or not, the SWAC is in that number as well. I didn't know that until recently because those guys actually came down to the Celebration Bowl the last few times. So there's a relationship there between those commissioners. Keep an eye on what those leagues do, and that usually what they do, that's what everyone else is going to follow.
That's fair. Hey, listen, guys, we are going to end this live. But listen, if you want to continue the conversation, you can head over at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 Central, to my man BJ Jones. He will be having a Spaces, so you'll probably be hearing the same voices. You probably hear my man Blue on that jank. Some other people, probably Dr. Cavill and some other insiders as well, that'll give you some knowledge on there. Make sure you tune into that. Anything else you got going for yourself, BJ, that's coming up?
Hey, man, I'm just being dad, man. My next next go around, man, probably be SWAC Media Day. And then after that, MEAC SWAC Challenge, man. But me, man, I'm just trying to catch up on sleep, man, and get this newborn where she need to be, man.
No problem, man. Listen, we appreciate the time. We appreciate you jumping on with us, BJ, man. Great conversation. Tell your wife I appreciate it. We appreciate it. All right. Hey, listen.
All right, man, appreciate you.
No problem. Hey, Blue, tell them what you got coming up, Blue.
Man, listen, just more All-American teams dropping next week. The SWAC's next week, the MVFC's next week, SoCon, Southland, man, a bunch of All-American teams. Our FCS Top 25 dropped today, man. Been crazy response to that, man. Great response. Appreciate y'all there, man. So website, thebluebloodspod.com. A lot of the content will be there. Live streams probably coming next week. Some more recruiting updates on the YouTube channel, man. But other than that, that's it over here.
Man, other than that, that was like 7 days, man. Other than that, I got the article, I got the drops, I got the interviews, but other than that, I'm just out here working. God, no, made me feel bad. Anyway, hey, listen, I got a special guest on Tuesday. I'm telling you right now, you do not want to miss this interview. I promise you, it will blow your mind. All right, so I got an interview Tuesday. You already know it's probably going to be at 7:00. Eastern Standard Time, special guest. You don't want to miss it. Hey, man, but listen, that's my boy Blue. I'm your boy Scotty. You've been watching The Roundtable. And until next time, you know what we going to do. Holla. God bless.